Next, we have Leslie Smith, who's with Aura and L, who's going to share her story.
I think you're going to hear a similar message that Shania had. So when I thought about my legacy speech today, I think 3 words kept coming to mind for me: perseverance, community, and grace. I think over the years, these are what helped me get to where I am today. When I was a teenager in high school, I had no direction, I had no goals, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. High school was pretty boring for me. My mom honestly bribed me to get out of high school so I would finish. So the path to where I am today was really not planned, and it was very not straightforward. I enrolled in college because everyone was doing it. My parents expected it. They were professionals with graduate degrees. But again, with no real desires, no real goals, no direction, I was kind of bored. Well, I had fun the first semester. I dropped down to 3 classes. I barely passed them, so I did not go to class. My mom was super pissed at me because I said, I don't need college. I'm going to go find myself in the working world, Mom. I got this. Well, about 2 years later, I found myself divorced with an infant daughter to support. It was then that I realized I wanted stability and security for her. I didn't know any other way to do that but to go back to college. So I enrolled in college. I worked part-time. I went to school full-time. Took student loans out, a little nervous about that. For financial reasons, I had to go back to school. I had to go back to work full-time. And so then I started taking night classes. I can attest with Shania, I would not recommend that. With an infant, it was very stressful. There were lots of moments where I didn't know if I was coming or going, but I looked at my daughter and I knew my why and I knew the end goal, so I just kept going and I picked myself up. I think that the stress and overwhelm was difficult. Finances were tight a lot. I didn't know really how we were going to make it sometimes. She would be sick. I still had to get up and go to work. I still had to get up and go to class. She would have school events that I would have to miss, so there was a lot of guilt. She would have projects due for school. I had projects due for school. I had to study. So there was a lot of anxiety and overwhelming. There were several meltdowns along the way from her and from me. But I think perseverance kept me going. I just picked myself up, dusted myself off, and just kept going. I think really what my community, family, my friends, my coworkers, they really helped me. They kept me going. My family was always there to support me. They helped watch her whenever I had class, whenever I needed to study, when I just needed a few hours to decompress by myself. My parents were so sweet. They had Saturday sleepovers with her so she can go play, and I could be a young adult and go hang out with friends. My friends knew I was on a budget, so they would invite us out to dinner, and they would pay so we could get out of the house and go do fun things. And they would take us on their family vacations with them because they knew I couldn't afford to take her on a vacation. One of the first vacations that we had I'll never forget. My daughter was 2. It was her first time at the beach. And so she was a little nervous going to the beach. We held hands walking into the water. And she looked up at me when the water was coming towards her, and she wasn't sure she really wanted me to pick her up or not. But I didn't, and we're like, we're going to do this. And so when the water hit her legs, she just looked at me with the biggest, best grin. And we played for hours in the sand and the surf, and we had the best day. I also found community in really unexpected places. When she got older, teachers would let me bring her to class with me when they knew I didn't have a babysitter. Mothers of her classmates would invite her over for play dates after school or on weekends when they knew I had a class or I had to study. I found moments of grace in these stressful times. One time I was going through a really difficult period, and I was in the post office with my daughter, and I probably looked like a really hot mess because this stranger woman behind the postal worker came from around the corner, and she hugged me. She gave me the tightest hug. I started bawling. She started bawling. And she said, "You just look like you needed it." And I'm like, "I did. I really did." And she's like, "You're going to be okay. You'll get through this. You're going to be okay." And she was right. Eventually I did. It was all good. And then a few years later, my daughter, she was probably in the third or fourth grade. I had a huge test the next day. And she could probably feel my anxiety, and she could tell I was getting stressed. So she told me she was going to make dinner. Well, that kind of ramped up the anxiety a little bit, because I was like, "What are you going to cook?" But she fixed me a sandwich and some chips, and we ate dinner. And she just said, "I want to take care of you. I want you to feel good, and I want you to do well on your test." So I was like, "Oh, thank you so much." But I will admit that it was hard for me to rely on people over the years and accept help. I felt like it would make me look weak. I felt like it would make me be a burden. But a wise woman, my mother, she told me there was grace in accepting help from people, because it allowed them the opportunity to do an act of kindness for you, and that one day I would be able to do that for someone else. And she was right. It has been very rewarding for me to do kind and graceful things for others over the years. So I'm very thankful that I listened for once. So 1 degree turned into 3 degrees over a 20-year period, mostly part-time, working full-time. It allowed me to have a good job that I love, that's been challenging and rewarding. It's allowed me to meet awesome people along the way, including people I work with, the women today that I've met over in this group. And it's also allowed me the opportunity to set a good example for my daughter, to show her determination and hard work pays off. She graduated college in 4 years. She has a great career that she loves. She's self-supportive, which I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I wasn't, so I'm just so proud of her. And what I thought was going to be a lone trek of a single mom, I met a wonderful man who took us both in, adopted my daughter, and raised her as his own. And he takes care of us. In fact, he wrote me a note today, put it in my jacket pocket to tell me good luck, and I got this. In fact, the first line was, "You are the shit." So I was like, yay! When I run into friends and female colleagues who worry about, their work-life balance, I tell them about, my struggles, my mistakes, my failures, and the things that I learned from them. And the most important thing I think I learned was quality over quantity. That was the first thing I learned through the hardships of studying and working and raising my daughter. So when I did spend time with her, I was 100% there. She had my full attention, whether we were painting fingernails, reading books, riding bikes, whatever it was. She knew she had my attention. And I think that it helped my guilt, for sure, when I couldn't be there, but I think it also helped her know why I was doing this and understand when I couldn't be there for her. I also found that there could be grace in small gestures. A few years ago, I managed this woman. She was just brilliant, the hardest worker, but she questioned everything. And so she was very, very hard to manage. Unfortunately, at the time, we were going through an organizational change and policy changes. Lots of things didn't make sense, even for me. So she questioned everything, sometimes in group. And so I had to pull her back a little bit. And I wasn't really sure how to manage her. I started doubting myself and questioning myself. She left the company for other reasons. And then I get a card from her. And she said, "You are the best manager I ever had, thank you." I was a little shocked because I thought I was failing her and I was not doing a good job. And she said, "You listened to me and I felt valued." And so I realized, wow, just listening to someone and having empathy for their frustrations, even though we both knew there was really nothing I could do to make it better, she was heard and she felt valued. So I love that, and I still have that card to this day, and I'll read it sometimes when I start to doubt myself or question myself, that there is value in just listening. So if I had a legacy message to leave everyone, when you're faced with obstacles and struggles, your perseverance, even if you have to stop, regroup, restart a couple of times even, support from your community, in moments of grace from strangers, your community, and yourself, these will help you get through to see your goal. Thank you.